Alright, I'm doing a 6-part series entitled A Guide to Switching to Linux Ubuntu Edition. And in this video, I'm going over installing software on Linux, specifically Ubuntu. Now I want to say that Linux has what's called a package manager, which is basically kind of like an app store on your phone. It acts as a trusted centralized repository for Linux applications. And this is where you're going to get most of your applications on Linux from. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so now before we jump into this, I want to go over updates first. So now Ubuntu uses an application called Software Updater to manage updates. And basically how it works is you just open it up and it'll go check for updates. And then if there are any updates available, you just click install now and it just goes and installs them. And sometimes you will need to punch in your password to install these updates. And I also want to say that these updates don't take nearly as long as Windows updates. Like, Linux uses a much more efficient package management system, especially when compared to Windows. But anyway, I'm gonna go speed this up and meet you once I'm done. Alright, and sometimes you're going to need to restart your computer in order to apply all the updates, but most updates are actually applied without a reboot on Linux. The only kind of updates that I can think of that require a reboot are Linux kernel updates, but even then there are ways to run a new version of the Linux kernel without rebooting, but I'm not going to get into that because that's kind of complicated, and that'll be later in your Linux journey if you're a beginner. But anyway, I'm going to click restart now and get into the meat of this video once this is rebooted. Alright, so now, as I said at the beginning of this video, the package manager is where you're going to get most of your software from on Linux. And on Ubuntu, that's going to be the Ubuntu software application. Now, it's pretty easy to find and install apps through here. You've got different categories for apps and some featured apps, just like your phone's app store would have, and you can look at all these on your own time. But let's just say I want to look for GIMP, which, in case you're unfamiliar with that, it's a free and open source image editor, and in fact it's the image editor that I use to make all my thumbnails. You just click on that and then you just click install. Now if there are multiple sources here, like you get one that's Ubuntu Focal whatever and one from Snap Store or a few from Snap Store, the one that you usually want is the deb format, and that's because applications in the deb format will launch faster, and if you do customization they'll respect the theme. But anyway, we just click on that and then it's going to give you the deb version of the application. And also another bonus is that applications in the deb format are also packaged specifically for your version of Linux. But anyway, if we just click install, then we've got to punch in our password and then it'll go install. Very similar to how you would install a new application on your phone, except it doesn't depend on any kind of online account. You just punch in your local user account password. I just want to say, if you're not used to that, well, welcome to Linux. You don't need to make any kind of online accounts just to get software installed. You have the freedom to be totally anonymous. And oh, look at that, it's already installed. And if we go to our other applications here, we've got GIMP right here, or New Image Manipulation Program as it's called here. We can open that up. Now this application in particular has to do some initialization when it first launches, but any subsequent launches will be quicker. And by the way, no, this doesn't happen with every application. It's only this specific one. Like, this is the exception, not the rule. Then we can interact with it as we do normally. Now, if you ever want to remove an application, extremely simple. You just go to that applications page, which you can find under your installed applications, and then you can actually just click remove here or on the application page, and then a confirmation dialog will pop up, and if you don't want to remove it, you just click cancel. If you do, you click remove, punch in your password, and then it's going to go remove the application. Now, when an application is being installed or removed, it'll actually get moved to the top of this list. Now, under the application page, oh, it would have said removing with that working icon next to it, if you know what I mean, but it looks like it's removed. That's the thing I appreciate about Linux. Installing and removing applications is usually very fast and simple. If anyone tells you otherwise, either they've never tried out Linux before, they just didn't know what they were doing when they were trying to install software on Linux, or at worst, they're just flat out lying to you. But anyway, now let's get into what if a piece of software is not on the package manager. Like, for example, Google Chrome, which is not on the Ubuntu Software Center. You still have to get from its official website. When you do that, you'll get a .deb file. You simply download that. We're going to save the file, or we could open it up here, but let's save the file. And it simply downloads through your web browser, similar to how you would download an exe file on Windows. And by the way, no, exe files don't work with Linux unless you install Wine, which if you're a user, just know that doesn't always work. Like, you'd be better off just looking for alternatives for your Windows applications, or even just using a dual boot to run your Windows apps. But anyway, that file is going to be in your downloads folder, and you can close out your web browser at this point. And then you're basically just going to double click on the deb file as you would with an exe file, and then it's going to open up in your package manager. Just give it a second. Then, similar to how you would install an application from the package manager, you just click install, punch in your password, and then it'll go install. Like, this is very simple when compared to a lot of Windows installers when you have to like agree to EULAs, opt out of bloatware and snooping and whatnot. But anyway, now that we've got that installed, again, it'll show up right here. You just open that up, and then it'll do this first run thing. So now you can go make Google Chrome your default browser, and by the way, I'd recommend that you don't automatically send usage statistics and crash reports to Google. But then anyway, you just click OK as you would with the normal Chrome installation, and there you go. Now you're in Chrome, and you can browse the web like normal, assuming you're a Chrome user. Now, by the way, if you ever want to remove an application like this, you go into the Ubuntu Software Center, then go to installed, then look for it here. Now, if it doesn't show up here, which for me it's not, and this is very common, what you can do is if you still have the file, you can just open that up as if you were going to go and install the application, and then you can just click remove. Now, it may get you to install it again before giving you the option to remove it, but anyway, you just click remove as if it were just a regular application from the package manager, and then you click remove. Then punch in your password, and then it'll go ahead and remove the app. And now, once it's removed, in the case of a deb package, it'll say unable to find whatever package it is. Don't worry, this is totally normal. It just means that now the application's removed, but since it's from a local deb file, it can no longer find the package, so you just close out of it. And now, once you go back into your show applications, it's gone now. Now, if you ever come across a file extension that you don't know how to install from, you can just look up how to install that particular application, and you should find instructions on how to install it. I mean, after all, if the developer is willing to go through the effort to make their application work on Linux, they should also go through the effort to teach users how to install an application. But this is not very common. It only happens with a few proprietary applications like VMware. But anyway, we're done with this video. As you can see, very simple. And that was installing software on Linux in a nutshell. So thanks for watching. If you liked this video, found it was helpful, hit the like button, share this video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. And in my next video, I'm going to be going over encrypting the home folder, so stay tuned for that.